Hello, once again, David Moore here, Equity Advantage, IRA Advantage. Blessed to have Jonathan Frizzell here. He's with CBRE Cost Seg out of Seattle, and we're trying to sort of uncover or demystify Cost Seg for people, because I think it's one of those things where in the institutional world, the bigger stuff, I mean, we talk about families you do these things for, there's lots of well-heeled people, but I think it's something that's lost so often on people that are just looking at, like a rental house. And we talked about like a rental house, what happens with a rental house on things. And I think there's a real opportunity that's just missed, and we need to be aware of these things. So, if we look at Cost Seg, Jonathan, and it's complicated, as I said. If we're talking about in a 1031 context, if I'm speaking, or with our retirement accounts, I always talk about a good, competent team of professionals. I want people paying for an opinion, not paying for people to learn. So,
Sure.
If we look at Cost Seg, it's. I mean, I've been in this business a long time, 30 years, and I'm still. It's like, some of the stuff what you do is black magic to me, honestly, and you probably look at what I do and the same thing about what I do. But I think it sort of really pinpoints the fact that it is complicated. You need to have somebody that's really competent, knows what they're doing, taking care of it for you, and it needs to be supported with other people. You have a team of people that are going to support these things. If there's ever a question on something, you want definitely the person's tax people involved, right? So why don't you explain a little bit who you're typically corresponding with when you put one of these studies together? Obviously the property, the principals, but then you've got other people that you would consider team members.
Well, that's a good point. It's important to note, David, that it's an engineering function, and then when we get done with the study, it becomes an accounting function.
Yeah,
that's what's important.
So why don't you explain to us what engineering function or accounting function means?
All right. Well,
it's like all the acronyms in today's world. We got to be careful, right? It's like, what's this mean? What's that mean?
Well, oftentimes,
we're
dealing with numbers. It's a good point. Yeah. We're dealing with numbers, and with all due respect, we take with engineers with an on-site review, our civil engineers, our structural industrial engineers. They're going to actually look at the building and measure it out and document all the improvements. And then with costs, and then they'll be estimating the cost of that building, reconstructing that building. So a lot of times people think it's an accounting function. It really isn't until we're done. Now, once we deliver the study, then it becomes an accounting function.
See, we talk about exchanges, and everybody wants to put it in the tax or legal world. I said it's not a tax or legal decision. It's purely an investment decision. And I would look at your stuff the same way. I mean, you don't do an exchange. You shouldn't be doing it just to hide from tax. You're punting it down the road and
Sure.
deferring things, and it works no differently than an IRA or 401k plan, really. And a lot of times people come into me and say, well, gee, why would I do an exchange today? I'm going to have to pay the tax at some point anyway. Why not pay it today? I said, well, do you have an IRA? Oh, yeah. Well, why? You're going to have to pay the tax at some point anyway. Why not pay it today? So what you deal with day in, day out is really creating a value for the building, creating a better return for these people throughout that thing.
Time value of money.
Yeah.
We don't teach enough of it in our schools, public or private, but the dollar today is always going to be worth more today than tomorrow, and it's time value of money. And would you rather have the dollar today, or do you want to wait 39 years or 27 and a half years to get that depreciation?
No, I sort of feel like that little kid with the candy bar that's being tempted to eat it. They leave him in the room and see how long he can stay there.
Yeah, I was one of those kids emptying out those candy jars, trust me. Yeah, so and a lot of my clients, a lot of the families I work with all over the Northwest, actually in the West Coast, they 1031 in Cost Seg right up until their last days. They're not concerned about what their basis is because with their heir apparents, then there's a step-up basis. And then we start all over with that's whether they're their spouse or with their kids or their nieces or nephews or grandchildren. And so now I'm working with, already after 13 years of service in this industry, almost 13 years, I'm starting to work with the second generation kids.
That's going to be fun.
It is kind of fun, actually. It really is.
So how's the acceptance of second gen versus the first gen?
Well, it's interesting you ask. I never lose sight where my relationship started with that family. So I always look at the patriarch and the matriarch first. And then
you've got to respect that. I mean,
it's funny with other particular industry partners. They want me to address the whoever it is, the eldest son or daughter, and I never lose sight the matriarch or patriarch. Never lose sight. I'm very old-fashioned that way. And what I find is at the end of the day, the second and third generation appreciates that.
Yeah.
So but it's funny. A lot of my clients, they pretty much 1031 and cost segregate all their properties right until it's time for them to leave this earth, and then of course you have that nice step up in basis. So you got a duality of deferment. You're deferring the gain, but you're deferring the recapture too.
So Jonathan, was there anything that impacted Cost Seg and tax reform?
Great question. Yes, we have the Tax Reform Act. I never thought in my days this would happen, but Congress has legislated any acquisitions, meaning used property, any acquisitions after 9/27/17, meaning September 28th, year 17 going forward, they're subject to a 100% bonus. And then
so explain for the benefit of the audience, bonus.
I certainly am. I was just going to do that. So, beat me to it, David. So bonus is defined by Young Bush, 9/11/2001. It was a genesis, the beginning of bonus depreciation. And bonus is defined as anything 20 years or less, 20 years of depreciable life or less. So that would include the 5 and possibly the 7 year on the personal side that we get, and then the 15 year on the land improvements. So literally, if you're an active, real estate professional, active investor, you may very well qualify for 100% bonus, and you get the benefit all in the first year as opposed to the first 5 years, which is huge. And the good news is, of course, even if the LLC can't chew up those losses, they travel very, very nicely right to your personal returns.
So if we look at what you just said, and we talk about 1031 lost the ability to do 1031s on personal property, a lot of what's happening now is really a result of taking the bonus depreciation, fully or expensing an acquisition to offset the gain realized on a disposition.
Right.
If we're talking the personal property world.
Right. Yeah, and it's my understanding now 1245 is recognized, personal property is recognized, and I would like to say quietly that I think that becomes a moot point, because on the on the replacement property, you still got bonus, 100% bonus opportunities. And so far in the year and a half since this change, the Tax Reform Act, it seems to be a moot point, and there seems to be a high level of activity and trading going on ever more so. So I don't think it's going to be a problem if 1245 is recognized now in 1031 exchanges.
Okay. So and we haven't really talked about this, and I'm going to ask you, as far as the cost of something like this, if you're doing a rental house, and I'm sort of coming at it from perspective of things like this have probably been around for a long time, but before businesses like yours existed, you had to pay somebody that had this, secret knowledge, a lot of money to get a study done in your case, or
Sure.
1031 exchanges, for example. I mean, if we go back in the 80s and even early 90s, I mean, we made twice what we made today on just a setup fee.
Sure.
But it's changed with all that's happened. But 1031 was sort of looked at in tax reform as something for the wealthy, and it's anything but. It's something that anybody can do. I mean, an exchange of one-to-one and a basic transaction's $1,000 today. I mean, that's nothing. So it's not something for the wealthy. It's something for the everyday Joe to use. And is Cost Seg, if we're talking about a Cost Seg study, we've talked about the benefit even on a rental house. Ballpark cost of getting a study done, and how long would it take if somebody just had a rental house, for example?
Well,
and I ask this because we've got rent control that's just got passed statewide,
Sure.
and people are going to be pinched, and they're going to be looking for more ways to make more money on this on those properties.
Well,
if they want to stick around.
I understand. Good question, David. It tends to range depending on product type, but usually $5,000 to $10,000. Now, we've got a member of Oregon CCIM chapter who referred me to a client. I did quite a bit less on that because it's a compadre. It's a colleague
Yeah.
within the chapter, and I'm nothing more than a janitor and a custodian, a
Yeah,
depreciation
and-
expense. So I can go lower than the 5,000 number to make it
Yeah,
fit.
and I don't want a hard number, but
No, I
just a
know.
range so people
Yeah.
understand this is not something that's going to break
Yeah,
your
it's-
bank.
no, it's
I mean,
not
hey,
gonna
we're
break-
going to give you a $20,000 benefit, but it costs you 25.
No, I wouldn't pencil that one
Yeah.
out for sure. But one thing about part of my success, as well as the Cost Segregation Group of CBRE, we try to focus on scope instead of actual estimated tax savings dollars. The IRS frowns on that, even though the Big Four do it all the time. But the truth of the matter is, we want to. If you got a 50,000 square foot warehouse with nothing but with no electrical, nothing inside there, that might be a little easier than a 10,000 square foot full service dental office. But one's probably going to be about the same amount of money as the other because there's a 1/5 of square footage. So about 5,000 to 10,000. For single families, we've got a program that we can perform to up to a $500,000 cost basis, where I can get this done for $400 or $500 on modeling. I did that for one of our esteemed longtime members, longtime family here in Portland for his gas station, believe it or not. And it's a modeling program we can actually do. Now, it's not a full-blown cost segregation study, but we will.
Cost Seg light.
It's very cost seg light, but we will defend it.
Yeah.
That's another thing, a beautiful thing about CBRE is I negotiated with my managing director about the possibilities of what kind of scope we can have for my book of business, and they were happy to do it. All our studies, regardless of what type of product type it is, you're going to have a beautiful, comprehensive, expanded detail. So I'm going to break it down into hundreds of pieces from 1245, the personal side, the 1250, and the land improvements. But you'll have an executive summary that are breaking down on the buckets. But the good news is I'm going to break it down in assemblies and sub-assemblies. So when they do improve their property going forward, they're going to find out what that unit of property or that component costs at the genesis, at the time of service, time of acquisition. And guess what? Let's get it off the books. So there's an additional value for working with Jonathan at the Cost Seg Group at CBRE. I would like to say quietly, not all Cost Seg providers are created equal.
No.
And it's not in the U.S. Constitution, but it's true. You want to get a real Cost Seg provider that has a true engineering group, because there's a lot of, we're not regulated by anybody until there's a review. So you want to have a quality product out there.
Great.
For a lot of reasons.
Great. Well, thank you, Jonathan. We're going to wrap this segment up, but don't go away. We'll be right back. David Moore, Equity Advantage, IRA Advantage, with Jonathan Frizzell, CBRE Cost Seg out of Seattle. Thank you.
Thanks, David.